Okay, so in the last session we'll cover the financials. Some of you will be really excited about this bit, and others will not. If you've got people in your organisation that love Excel and spreadsheets, I'm sure this will be a joy for them. We will cover a hands-on exercise on this because I think it's just worth going through, even if a simple example, how to do it, just so you get a bit of familiarity with it. Anyway, so what will we cover? So I'll just overview, how we think and what kind of documentation stuff's involved in the financial response. An overview of the forms. This is not all the forms, by the way. There's quite a large number of forms, but these are the most usual forms you will tend to use. So this is the what's going on? Andreas, what's going on here then? I'm clicking one button. Oh yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so overview will cover the PSSA1, PSSA2, and A8. These are the typical forms. Yeah, you might be asked for others, but I'm not so sure you would do in a PEX. So we'll do a hands-on example of that. We'll walk through all these forms. I've got a bit of test data we could use to flesh those forms out. I'll talk a little about ESA ECOS because they do have a system to help you do this, but you need to be a registered member to do that. Yeah? But I'll cover that a bit later. Contractual aspects you typically find in this part of the proposal. Some conclusions and a complete refresher, just in case you forgot anything from this morning. Okay, so shall we begin? Oh yeah. Okay, so the PSS forms are a standardized way in which you can report the financial costs of the project to ESA. It's nice and easy and transparent for them. It gives them a nice way of comparing costs, particularly around the same opportunity. It's a simple way of comparing. In here you can also break down the costs for a particular work package, so they can see the cost of overall job, the cost of labour per category type, the cost of each work package, any travel or sustainability costs such as hotels or out-of-pocket expenses, maybe the cost of some particular type of facility that you may need, more applicable in hardware or some kind of safety system where you may need to borrow a test bed of some description of someone else. Maybe some particular costs about your facilities. So every subcontractor will also need to fill these in. You're also going to need to put any contractual non-compliance or things like any assumptions you made. As I said before, quite often you will apply assumptions. In the case of a PEX, whether you'll need to do that or not depends a little bit. If you're likely to reuse another piece of software and you've never seen it before, you probably have to make some assumptions about it. Otherwise, be prepared to take the risk. As I mentioned earlier on, the more detail you put in a WBS, the more you're going to have to do you. So just don't go crazy and create this, you've got a 50k job and you've created 200 work packages. That's going to be quite a painful exercise to create the summaries for that, unless you've got some very good tools to help you. So just use a bit of wisdom. Look at the size of the job and try to consider how much effort you should go into, depending on how much financial resource you're asking for. So, as I said, ESA typically use PSS forms to provide that cost data to. Bear with me. So we've got the PSS A1, which basically is just giving you an overview of the labour cost per category type. So let's say you've got an array of categories like senior analyst, design authority, tester, developer, with various different levels of experience. Then you've got labour costs, a direct cost associated to that, and you've got an indirect cost, i.e. overhead. So you need to describe this in this form. Bear in mind, like, these are auditable. Yeah, so if you know, if you go and put it's a 200% overhead charge, at some point they will quiz why you've got such a large overhead over your labour. And if you don't have a good justifiable reason for it, then I'll expect you to do something about it. So yeah, understand what you know. I guess most of you will be in businesses already, so you already have some way of determining what that is. What overhead pays for the management and facilities and all the rest of it, the indirect part. You can find the forms and just follow the link there. You don't need to be registered to get these, but you can go download. In the session material today, you'll find all the forms that we're going to look at today, and hopefully by the end of it, you'll have crafted a response, even though it's a simple one. Okay, so as I said already, the PSSA1 is just there to give them a flavour of what your basic costs are and how they work. You will be asked if you're providing hardware, facilities, test beds, things like that. You can put costs for them in here as well. I have no experience of that because I've never done it. There are large documents on the website I pointed you to, which describe in depth what you need to do here. These are quite forgiving, so if you do accidentally make a mistake, with the numbers, or they don't add up, they'll usually just they'll ask for a clarification from you. Yeah, they don't typically just throw you in a bin because you've made an error. You've made a simple error. If you can find tools or spend some time and make life easier for yourself, because these can get quite large with a lot of information. And it depends how you build your work effort costs and how to relate them back. Yes, you need to look and think about that. Don't leave it to the last minute. And if you're dealing with subcontractors, I'd get them early, because these things need to be signed and handed in signed. So if you've got subs, get them to provide the PSS forms as early as you can get them. Remembering that you will typically have a deadline for shipping. So you might have, if you've got a long delivery, let's say it's got to go to Italy or it's got to go to Holland and you're using the post, you're most likely going to lose a week or not far off of that. If you want to abide by ESA's conditions, particularly if you want to play safe, in so much as that if it fails to get there, if you do it in less than 5 days, you may have a challenge on your hands, because that's their rule. So if they say in the ITT, okay, you've got 5 days prior to submission, if you're going to use shipping, then you must. If you fail to do that, you run a risk. Yeah? If it doesn't get there and you say, oh, I only give 2 days, yeah, it depends how well you can negotiate that. But typically, they could rule you out for that. So, okay, the A2 gives basically an overview of the cost by those labour categories you've defined in the A1. Yeah, so there's a clear relationship between them. So the rates have to add up. The hourly rate's got to be the same as the A1, basically. But this form will show how many hours of each type of category they're going to get for this piece of work. Yeah, and they do look at that, and they get a feeling as to whether or not they think it's right. And at the end, there'll be other things in here like profit. There'll be other things like if you've got any travel or subsistence. They'll all be accounted in here. Some other kind of specialist facility I was talking about. So this will be, you'll have the unit charge in the A1. And now the multiplier of how many of them you're going to use to bring a total cost in the A2. And then the painful one, if you've got a lot on your WBS, is this one, the A8. Because this is a work package breakdown. Yeah, so my advice is don't keep to top level work packages. If they want clarity on if you've got 10 work packages under one heading, if they want clarity, they'll come and ask. But if you try to break it down in here, you really can create yourself an awful lot of work. So try and keep top level if you can. This will give them a view of how much each part of the project is costing. And they typically have rules for you know, where it should be more or less as an overall percentage. Yeah, for you know, for example, if this is a project and you've got 5 subcontractors, yeah, and overall you've stated they've got 5% for management. Good luck. You know, it's not justifiable. It's not. You're never going to do it. You know, so you need look at those. They'll help you to understand if the model of what you've got is right. Does it sound right? You know, if you've got these kind of people and you're going to need to engage them, make sure they're delivering. What happens if they don't? How are you going to monitor that, evaluate that? Have you got enough effort? You know, then again you could come down and look. Well, okay, I've got to develop this really sophisticated thing, and I've only put 20% of the budget on it. Really? You know, or you've got a tested work package, and actually the level of software you develop is quite sophisticated, and it does, you know, a lot of things, and you've only got a few percent. You know, so it will help you look at the overall shape and ask yourself the question: do I think that's right? Is it right? And the same for your subcontractors. Yeah, get their PSS forms, their costs, and the earlier you get there, the easier it is to negotiate with them. Because let's assume they come back and they're 3 times what you thought they were going to be. That's causing you a bit of a problem of where you overall expect it to be. So if you don't have the time to challenge them, you know, to make sure the assumption of what they're doing is what you think it is, then you know you could price yourself out very quickly. So anyway, this is a good document to get a good form to get a good overview of your work. Again, find ways of which to smooth this process for yourself by linking it to some other kind of work effort spreadsheet you may be using, your technical guys may be using to price the job in the first place. But I wouldn't start you with the with pricing. Okay, so I don't know how you quite want to do this. I can do it two ways really. I'll leave it to you. But we can either work through an example together, and I can do it up here, and you can do it at the same time. Or you can have a try, and I can come and have a look, or people can raise issues. I'm open to which way you'd prefer to do that. Anyone have any preferences? I edged my bets it would be the former. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so I've given some example data here. Yeah, just it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't want to take too literal into the example data. It's just to give you a feeling and more to walk you around some of the forms and what would be on them. Yeah. Okay, this will be fun. All right. He's a senior engineer. And an engineer category, so with the appropriate rates I've put next to them. So those are base rates, direct cost. We've got an overhead of 40%. Yeah. So we'll just go and create those categories in here.
You have to enable it.
Yeah, just click on the top. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, great, thanks. So. So I say, for those who love spreadsheets, boy, you're going to find this fun. No. Yeah. It's not error there because you need to put. I'll repeat again for the engineer category. You may have many categories there. You may have only a couple. Okay. I mean, is everyone doing this? Otherwise, I'm quite happy to save these ones because there'll be some formula added, and then maybe they can make them available for download. But if everyone's doing them with me, then you don't need to. But if not, then I can save them now. Yeah, you want to do that? Yeah. Okay.
What does mean 1.4?
Because what we're doing there, you've got 40% overhead, right? And the you know that the rate's going to stay, so there's your 1, and you've added 40% to it. So that's where that's coming from. Right, Andres, is there somewhere I can save these locally?
I think it's same in the same folder.
Yeah, okay, I'll write over them, yeah. Okay. So I mean, the rest of the data here is relatively straightforward. Yeah, you'll have a response, which an ITT number, which will be in the ITT pack. You'll be clear what that is. The proposal number is your reference. Yeah, so like, you know, depending on how many of these you do, of course. If you only do one, it's not much of a problem. But if you're doing a lot of them, then you do need to know which one they're going to be referring to. So what currency, which is quite easy in this particular case because you're all in euro. Don't need to worry about that. And some company name, year, and you just leave this out. There is, you come down the form, if you've got some particular type of facilities that have a specific kind of cost that's determined, yeah? I have to admit I've never used that. And again, some overhead breakdown. Lucky for me, I only tend to work in labour, so it's nice and easy. So okay, does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. Just basically, what's your raw unit cost per hour for what type of categories you've got? Yeah, that's your starting building block. As I remember, don't forget, these are auditable. So if you've got big overhead, you better be able to justify it, because they will quiz you on it at some point. Yeah, so if you've got big numbers in here, like 200%, 300%, then yeah, you need to have a very compelling reason as to why.
What is your experience so far? What is normal, like acceptable overhead for each?
Well, you can't really say, because that's normally a business. You know, you've normally got that within the business. It depends how your business accounts for those things. You should already have one. You know, you should know what the raw labour cost is and what your employment costs are being paid on top of that by the company, and then whatever kind of, you know, management overhead or, you know, training element to that, or sickness risk you put on there, or anything else. Yeah? I mean, it's just the standard business model of your organisation.
Thank you.
What if an organisation hasn't got a fixed overhead rate for them, like they haven't calculated it before?
Ooh, then you should sit down and calculate that to the best degree you can do.
There's no flat rate that can be used. Okay.
No. All I'd say is that shouldn't be too high. You know, you know, there's no way anyone can mandate that to you, because it's your organisation. You know, this is your cost, right? So you need some way to determine what that is. Likely, the smaller the organisation, that's probably likely to be smaller than it would be as if we're a global organisation. You've got many heads who are not billable. You know, we're not generating revenue, but taking revenue. So it depends on ratios like that, I guess. But have a look, you know, and I'm sure you'll find material that will help you calculate that if you really don't know what it is. But start asking yourself questions if it's a double. You know, if you're driving that over 100%, then you should be asking yourself some questions. You know, is this right? Is my management labour twice what the labour rate is? It's not to say it isn't. It could be, and you might have a very good reason for that. Okay.
What is meant by these economic conditions?
Sometimes ESA will put a budget together based on a particular year. Like there might be economic conditions relating to 2008 or 2010 or 2011. You know, sometimes they do that particularly when member states sign up to a big program. You know what I mean? So if they start like at a very big program for hundreds of millions over a period of time, they might relate it back to the financial value at that economic point, because it's different, you know, a few years later, right? So
related with economic conditions, is there a certain place or reference where one can get the exact and known discount rate for certain economic?
no, I mean, usually this is not applied unless it's a big program, yeah, and it'll be clear what economic rates they want to apply. Yeah, yeah. But typically for most work, it won't be there. Okay. Okay, so now we'll open up the A2. Okay, again, there's just some more top level information, just more or less repeating the same that was on the A1. So again, the ITT number, your tender number, company name. As I said, you will need to get these signed. They will accept, you know, like an electronic signature or whatever, that's okay. But you for sure want them signed from your subs. Because you want to know that, you know, that your offer is dependent on them at that price point. And it's much better to have that on a bit of paper signed than it is to be discussing it later when they want to increase that. So you might give an overview of what you're being supplied, like software services or, you know, hardware, whatever it is. And in this particular box here, which is where the meat of your response is going to be, you can extend this as wide as you want. Yeah? And you often will do that. Because let's say the program is over 2 years, 3 years. Those rate categories, you might be applying an inflation per year. Yeah, normally ESA has some rule of thumb around that, you know, maybe 2 or 3% or whatever. So you will need to, you know, increase the category for each year that this project's going on for. So, you know, you might see the same category year, but repeated 4 or 5 times, depends how long the program is, yeah? Otherwise, you might lose some money. Or you might not cost in, you know, and your colleague turns up and says, hey, where's my pay rise? Where's my pay rise this year? Oops, forgot that. So, what we'll do now is we'll start to fill this one in. Oh, yeah. Oh, my memory's terrible. Right, okay, 2012. So, senior engineer. Okay, that's the number of hours. And it was 49 euro, if I remember correctly. We've got engineer. It was 35. I won't inflate the rates, but you know, you would typically see maybe those repeated with the year 2013 with some uplift. If I mean, you're more than welcome to, you know, to put in for a 10% inflation, but I suspect you know that will be pushed back. Basically, they'll just ask you, what you're doing with that. So you know, think about it. I think the ESA will generally use statistical data, you know, to understand, you know, what that is likely to be. You know, so you can ask them what they, you know, what their the guidance organisations they use for that, but I think at the moment it's around 2 or 3%, something like that. So we've put our rates in. You've got a nice easy one here because you're also trading in euro, so you've got no currency exposure. If you were outside of zone or you need someone outside of zone, do think about that. Depending on the currency you're talking about, this can cost you. The bigger the job, this can really cost you if things change. So now make sure you're if you're doing a very big deal and you've got a subcontractor with a large proportion of that, do ask them if they're taking cover, because there's nothing worse than, you know, you've picked Britain. It's a nice subcontractor in Britain and he's bid that but he's got a bit of a tight margin because you pushed him a bit. And he's not giving himself any cover on the currency exposure, and it changes. And now he's into loss. Chances are he's going to start backing away. Chances are he's going to, you know, he's not going to be running to pick up the phone, or he's not going to be answering your emails quite as rapidly because his management are pressurising him. So just because you're prime and you don't have the euro worry, do think about your subs and challenge them about it. Have they got cover? Have they thought about that? You know, what's the risk exposure? How long's the project? Because you're the prime, so you'll have to answer if there's a problem. Okay, so we've got those. I think in the, someone, I can't see that in front of me now, but sort of shout out if I'm wrong, but I think that I'll just put the fixed costs in at the moment that I know, which is travel. We've put 2 travels in there. That's €1,000 €1,000, yeah? Nice and easy. The profit that you're allowed to make will most likely be determined within the in the proposal. Yeah, it'll normally state you can make 8% is typical. So we'll use that margin on this, and I think we stated it would be 120k of labour. I'm going to cheat now because I know the answers, right? So I'm just going to put what they are. But it's actually 1,000 hours of this guy, 2,000 hours of this guy. There may be more than one guy, by the way. It's just that they happen to be in the same category. Yeah. So we can. Oops, do that. So we're just going to put a little formula in here. So I can figure it out. There we go. All right. So that times this. So your cost for senior engineers is more or less 50k. And you've got 70k of engineering level labour. So we'll just put a sum on that. I'm just going to sum these up as well. I'll make this simpler. So I don't know this keyboard, so no. No. Get that up. Add.
It's like still a layer of the physical layer still in
Hey, no, which way?
This one. So now it's exactly.
Oh,
it's
okay. I know I've not calculated that box, we'll do that in a second, but I just want to get. Okay. Okay. So that's essentially our raw costs. So it's our labour, our travel. Our management overhead cost is this. So now we're going to apply the margin. If anything else applies, look at this, and you'll need to put in it. We've got a simple example here, but so look what applies to you. Okay, so we're going to need to make 8% of that. Okay, that rate times, yeah. That's our profit. Subtotal that up. Yeah. If you know you suddenly decide you're going to invest in this and add some funding, your own personal funding or your organisation funding, perhaps because it's a new program and there's you know there's a competitor who's got a very strong position, and you think that might help you, yeah. Then you could offer to give some reduction, so you do it there. I'm not so sure how common that is, but you can do it. So I mean, in this particular case, so all we're going to do is just point them back to this, because we're not going to do that. Okay, so our top summary, you know, for the overall costs is right down there in the corner. And from this we can see, or ESA can see, how much labour they're going to get from that, and generally what the expenses are. So yeah, it's nice and simple. Does anyone have any questions on that one? Does it make sense? No? Okay, good.
Sorry, what's the profit margin? Like, where does it come from? Or you just like
Usually
assign a percentage?
It's usually defined quite often.
Oh, it's defined.
Yeah, yeah. And it varies from type of contract to type of contract. 8% is typical. And that's right across here, so I mean all the primes are under the similar condition, yeah? Some contracts, this can be even lower. So like manpower contracts can be maybe 4%, because it's, you know, it's almost guaranteed work for a long period of time. So you know, they will usually specify that. And it will normally be, looking at in their cover letter or the STCs will normally say what that can be. I don't know if they'll define that in PECs, but they'll certainly ask to understand what it is.
I have a question about other cost elements. Are they with the VAT, with value-added tax, or without?
Well, typically in ESA you can't charge VAT. I don't know if there's a different condition in PECs, but in EMITS, no, they have a VAT-free situation. Yeah, so you don't need to charge VAT, and you can't charge them. They're void of it. In most cases, often you know, you're inter-country trading anyway, so there won't be any. You know, it's quite often the case. But no, they don't. ESA itself, and it's normally, if you look in the STCs or the cover letter, it'll state that, and they usually even point you to where their exemption certificate is, because you just simply don't charge them any VAT. Yeah. So you might have, I mean, this is generally more applicable if you're building hardware and software, yeah? It's some of these things, although from time to time they might ask you, so they might say, yeah, we want this software, we want it to run on 2 boxes, and want you to procure those boxes and ship them. We want, you know, so you can have them in development, but we want them back. But they'll nearly always specify that. If they don't, then if you think it's a good idea, make it an option, but don't put it on you. Just put it in your financial as an option. Yeah? But you know, work to try and keep this low. You know, if they're not asking for it, you might think it's a good idea, so have it as an option. But And try not to have any overhead on that procurement, you know. So keep your burden down. So yeah. Okay. So we'll now switch to the EA8. My favourite. Okay. So you can amalgamate the companies here, yeah, and put them all on one sheet, but we tend not to do that. We tend to have one per subcontractor, because it's just nice and clear then what their bit is, what your bit is, and you can create a summary sheet in the document itself. Yeah, just a simple table that may be coloured, and you show it very simply which company's doing what, and you colour code them or something like that. And then we have one of these per company. It's just nice and clear. You can get them all signed, and everybody's, there can be no tampering, no excuse to discuss later. So I mean, they'll normally give you work package titles. They may give you number, they may not. Number how you want. I mean, there's no hard and fast rule. Yeah. So I'll just make something up here. I think we said project management. Done that again, almost. I'll just call that PM. And there was, I think, requirements. I think there was design and implementation. I think there was some testing. So I'll just name these. So we had the 2012 category. Again, you'll have to break this down by years if the project spreads over multiple years, and apply the same inflation. Yeah. So cross-check, try and group all these spreadsheets together. So you affect one, you affect them all. Yeah? I mean, find someone in your organisation who likes to spend a nice day putting all your spreadsheets in order and make them nice and efficient for you. And also try to relate them to your, as I said before, try and integrate them with your, the way you profile your effort, the way you price the job. Because that just makes a bit easy. It's a real nightmare if you come away and like, the guy who's costed it in a completely different way, hasn't used any work package descriptions or anything else, and the guy who's left to put this goes, oh, how am I supposed to relate that, So, okay, so, senior.
One question, does ESA want these tables on paper or electronic?
They'll ask for it in the, okay, so in the STCs, or the cover letter, they'll state, like, we want 2 copies, printed and electronic, on a CD, inside a proposal. They'll explicitly state how they want that. And maybe on PECs, they might just be perfectly fine with an electronic submission. Usually for any normal ITT response, they'll want a physical hard copy. Sometimes a large number of physical hard copies, maybe 5 or 6 of them, printed. So hence why you need, if there's shipping involved, the CDs will have to go inside them all. So they'll ask for an electronic copy with each physical printed copy. Yeah. Because the reason why they do that is that they want the binding offer printed by you, not that you can turn around later and say, "Well, I didn't give you that. That's not what I've got. You've been tampering with it." It just makes it nice and clear. They've got solid from you exactly what has been printed off of your printer. So that they'll state that. Maybe they'll do an electronic submission for PECs. I don't know. Sometimes they do that. Inside of frame contracts, sometimes that's perfectly fine. Just pure electronic. But normally, through an open competitive EMITS bid, printed paper. Don't know what they do with all those. Okay, so you got your rates 2012. You know what the totals come to, so you know what to check against. You know what to check yourself against. Don't remember what these come to now, but I think we'll just make them up as long as we round the numbers off. Okay, so I'm going to have my PM for 500 hours in there. Import. 200 hours in there. 275 there. Doesn't like testing, so he's going to do bare minimal himself. So we might, we'll probably have 0 here. And this guy's going to lumber with all the testing. So we just need to round all this off and just make sure that all the numbers add up, and also get prices for each of the pieces. Got labour hours. If my memory doesn't fail me, we're right on that. But still, the bigger and more work packages you've got in there, the more years that are involved, the easier it gets to make an error in there. So yeah, do spend some time checking. Now we're gonna have to price this, so yeah, we'll do it this way. Now this kind of basic thing will work, you know, probably in a PEX, but when you get a bit more sophisticated, as you get involved into bigger ITTs in the future, then yeah, you probably want to improve the basic math I'm putting in here. And also, it's not very maintainable, this. So, but hey, we're not here to do that. Hopefully when we get here and we calculate that up, we should have the same raw number. Is all of this making sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Bit hard to see.
Just
just to comment on this, I mean, in practice, you may want to, I mean, as you can see, there is a lot of duplication of this data here, so like the rates and things like that.
Yeah, you tie it all together, yeah.
So you may want to have your own place where you can all this data and then generate those forms using some macros or whatever.
Yeah, you should have like a nice sheet with all the rates in it. You know, so you've got one place to change, otherwise it's a horrendous nightmare, yeah? That's why you find yourself a guy who loves to sit in front of Excel for a day, and I'm sure you'll get a nice polished product. In the ECOS, I mean, we personally, as an organisation, we don't use ECOS because we have our own set of tools to do this, because we wanted to tie them back to the way we price internally. So I have no particular experience with the ECOS system itself. It does do some of this for you. So I mean, I would spend an hour or so once you're registered, download that and see if that's a nice tool to use, because it will do a lot of that for you, is what I understand. Yeah, it's just if you're a big organisation, you tend to have an internal pricing tool, and they're not going to change company policy to suit one customer. You know, when we go to review, they want to see our way to price, not our customer's way. So. And the customer only cares about how it's presented, really. It's presented in a way they can compare. And we have tools which will merge from that into this. So we've got 1,000 of expenses, so I'll give them to the PM. Yeah, you can have them. I'll make this simple here, so it's just 1,000 because it's easy. So I mean, you'll sometimes need to think about this overhead on subcontractors. So basically what's referred to as pass-through revenue. So this is, I mean, this is something you need to understand in your own organisation. Yeah, I mean, big organisations don't tend to like throughput revenue, mainly because it waters your margin down. You know, it makes you not look so profitable. So you need to understand that and understand what you're going to apply. ESA in general doesn't like a large percentage of overhead on a sub, because well, it costs them money and they're not getting anything for it, basically. So so you need to understand those commercials within your organisation, yeah. But I certainly wouldn't, you know, it's hard to say what ESA will support, but I mean, typically I've never seen them, you know, be very happy with anything more than 4%, even if they get happy with that. So for a small contract, I would probably try to make it as zero as, you know, as close to zero, if not zero, you know, because mainly the job's not big enough to affect something too much. But I mean, once you start getting into very big pieces, that can be quite painful. So you know, if you've got ways to progress that within your organisation, do find out what their parameters they like to work with are, because sometimes ESA may pay the sub direct. Now there are ways you could ask them if they'd be prepared to do that. So again, the profit on each part. So we'll just quickly calculate that. It's also useful to build some, some simple tools that will cross-check, one part with the next, just to make sure if there's any inconsistency, it gets flagged. Otherwise, it's a manual exercise. Which, when you rush in to get the proposal complete, it's not something you want to be burdened with. So ours are in euros. We can then now sum this up. So that, in principle, is done. And those values from the A2 and the A8 should match all the way along. So I mean, these are the forms that your financial, whoever's looking after your finances will be most keenest to understand, and the parameters, what the organisation's under, and what it's commercially exposed to. I mean, to be honest, if you're confirming a firm fixed price piece of work, and you put 2,000 hours or 3,000 hours, and it costs 2,000 or 3,500 hours, that's just your problem. That's the whole nature of firm fixed price. The only reason they put the hours there is not because you're confirming that's how many hours you're actually going to do, but as a way for ESA to basically determine, have you judged the necessary effort correctly? Is there confidence in your numbers? Because clearly if you don't put fiscal numbers they think can work, they're likely to give you the contract because they'll expect it'll fail. So that's why they do that. It's not a get out, oh sorry, I've now spent 3,000 hours so I should stop. If you're signing a firm fixed price contract and those are the number of hours you've determined the job to be, and you get it wrong, it's your problem. And now the same goes for your subs. If they've given you the number of hours, and it looks weak, particularly depending on the sub. If the sub is a very small organisation, 1 or 2 guys, you need to query that, or be prepared to pick up the work, because if they fail, you might be failing.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you show me the formula D22? I just wonder whether the 500 and 0 should be multiplied accordingly with the rates.
It is.
Okay, here it is. And the next one, please. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, this will get much more complicated if you've got multiple years, multiple rates.
Yeah.
So you need to sit and think about that. Have a look at this. I'll show you. There's a link to this ECOS tool. I'll discuss that in a minute. But go and have a look. Maybe if you don't have a solution and you're not a big organisation with already a very clear, pricing mechanism, you can probably just live with that and just use that tool throughout. And therefore you don't have to write anything. Because I understand it will produce the A8s. It's it is a tool for managing all of this and the generation of all these forms. So it's something you may well be able to use. But when because we have a particular process for this in our governance, we couldn't use it. We had to make our own. So we did that. Okay, so back to the slides. The resume button. Well, it's been 2 hours.
There is another worksheet on the Formula 2. Exhibit A, what does it mean?
Sorry?
Would you open the Formula ESA 2?
Yeah. Oh. That's A8, A2.
Ah, sorry. Just switch to this thing. Click that.
What does mean this exhibit A?
The second page.
Lower left corner.
Sheet, other sheet.
Sheet, other sheet. Is it something
So I'm not
to-
seeing where.
Second sheet.
It's the
Ah!
Is
I'll
it
have to look at
something
it.
additional to this, or it just explains something from first worksheet more exactly?
I've never used this sheet. I suspect it's probably for some kind of hardware cost item, you know, volume and stuff like that. If you're asked for the exhibit A, then you should complete it. If it's asked for in year. Ah, there, look. Financial provision for escalation. Can't say I've ever used that. But in the if you go to the link that's on that page, there's a documentation pack for each one of these forms. Yeah.
Okay.
So it probably clarifies. Sorry, I have no experience with working with that. You don't forget that also the primes are using this. Yeah, and they'll have very if you're building a satellite, I suspect that's quite a complicated form to fit compared to if you've got 5 or 10 work packages for software development or some other kind of activity. Yeah.
We don't need the session to release anymore, right?
No.
Let's just close it. From this slide.
Yeah. Okay, so it's just going back to the test data. So we've done the example. I guess we'll make the example forms available, so you can you've got a checkpoint you can go look at. Here's the ECOS system. So it is an automated tool to produce these process forms. I can't say if I've used it, so I don't know what it's capable of doing, but I'm aware that there is such a tool. But it is only available to registered users. So once you've registered on EMITS, go get it. Do that early. If you've got a bit of time now before your PECs, it'd probably be good if you could clarify with ESA what likely way they will want the financials presented. Because it may be they may decide we don't want to use PSS. Yeah, in EMITS, in PECs priorly, they didn't. But then again, they didn't use EMITS either. So maybe it'd be good to clarify that. And if they intend to use the PSS forms to evaluate this, go try this tool out. It may be far more beneficial for you, and do that early. Don't wait until you're into the proposal. You'll have enough to do then. So I understand that there is online video training available for this tool once you've registered. So maybe you'll find a perfect answer, and you won't need to look to produce or hand develop the PSS forms yourself.
Is the registration allowed for everyone, or is it somehow restricted to
No, there should be no restriction. I mean,
That means we all can just reach and...
Yeah, you register your... It's not like registering for, you know, just for a blog or something. I mean, there'll be an initial process which is quite easy, and then they'll ask you for things like, well, what's your turnover, and how many people have you got, and how many activities in space are you doing today, and how many of this and how many of that. It's a lot of statistical data. But you can register and then start to do that over a period of time, yeah?
And from the institution, are there restricted number of users or?
They'll probably allow you a few users, yeah, a few users. It's usually good to have, you know, 1 or 2 people who are going to be tasked with looking at EMITS and dealing with EMITS, yeah, than to have an army of people and nobody knows who's looking at what. You know, so it's good to have a backup because you don't know who will be away if something comes out, right? So, but what you could do is you could have someone who's responsible and have an internal address which points to 5 or 6 people within your organisation, yeah. So go look at the tool, see how interested it is, run the video. Perhaps that'll be something you can use. I understand it does have means to interface into company data. Not in our case, but maybe that's possible for you. So, for example, you could get your labour rates or something else, you know, automatically, you know, from whatever database that you're using to contain that. Maybe. So, usually in the financial bit, which often quite includes the contractual aspects, you are going to need to respond with your compliance to their contract. Yeah. Yes, we're all happy, or no, sorry, these 2 or 3 bits, they're a real problem for us. But you will have to justify that. They tend to look for full compliance. So if something's really painful for you, you know, highlight it and suggest some rewording, perhaps. Perhaps it's the wording of the statement. Perhaps, you know, all I'm trying to say is compliance is usually expected. So you have to be very, very clear if you're going to reject something, and very clear as to why. IPR constraints are getting very, you know, they put a lot more effort on governance around, you know, these kind of factors. It's very, very important to them, particularly because a lot of the software is reused, you see, beyond the agency. So they really do expect good governance around that, and rightly so. You're usually often expected to comment on the third-party list of products you intend to use, what type of licenses those are under. Be very wary of any viral, you know, copyleft licenses, because that can cause them quite a problem. And if you've got some way to automate that, I mean, there are software systems today that can look at that and even scan code, like Black Duck, for example, that can scan your code and see if someone's been a bit naughty by copying and pasting someone else's code from the internet. And they do check this stuff, yeah. So. You know, have good governance around, particularly if in software. I mean, not so much in the hardware, be not applicable. But so comment on the contractual. Be clear that you understand, you know, what IPR you're under, what governance you're going to put in place to monitor that. Yeah, and comment on those things in that part of the proposal, unless they're asked for somewhere else, and they may be. The STCs again always rule the day. So, conclusions. PSS forms are the way ESA can evaluate the pricing of the job. Make sure everything matches. The WBS matches with the pricing and your work package descriptions. Yeah, try not to have any inconsistencies in any of that. They all need to be signed. Each subcontractor will have his own forms. These are all good because you get them off your subcontractors and make sure they're all signed and everybody's nice and clear what they're doing and how much it's costing. The more you break down the WBS, the more you add to what they're asking for, the more complexity you'll create for yourself. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying be wise about it. Think about it and don't just think, oh, it's a great idea if I have 200 work packages, because yeah, you'll be creating yourself a sting in the tail later, which is much harder to fix, particularly if you've issued those to subcontracts, yeah? Because then you've created a problem that's very hard to solve then. And the closer you are to the deadline, the harder that's going to be to do. one of the most important things is make sure it's nice and simple. Yeah, the PSS forms, by the time you often copy and paste them into the proposal, you can barely read them. You know, so be smart about it. You know, go somewhere in the financial or in the management proposal and have a nice, colourful chart of this. Top level overview, top level work packages, who's doing what, who's owning what. So it's nice and clear for you. So, oh yeah, I know these guys, they're very good at that. Oh yeah, great that they're owning that. You know, they'll look for it. Yeah, they'll often know most of the companies that you're likely to be working with, particularly if it's specialist fields, you'll usually know them. You know, so that as soon as they see their name, there'll be things that they'll be looking for them to do. In no particular case in PECs, they might not know that. So just be clear amongst yourselves and to ESA who's owning what. And manage those relationships throughout the bid period. Be proactive. Bid management on a big proposal is a very, very timely job. The only tips I can give you are, if the job's quite large, try not to have the bid manager owning any document at all. Yeah, that can be very painful towards the end if he owns every document. Because as you move along, if he's getting challenges with subcontractor, he's getting challenges on price, and he's also trying to integrate all the technical documents that other people are giving him, that's painful. Yeah, very, very painful. So if you can, and you're in a position to do that, try and have a bid manager who's not owning anything other than the responsibility to get all the commercials in place, the responsibility to negotiate, the responsibility to keep chasing and pressing everybody, not only the subcontracts, but your own internal people as well. Yeah? They can also cause equally as much problems as externals can. So I think the more you can give the guy the time to deal with those issues, the better. And the more he can monitor himself and a plan, the better. Really, it can be a painful experience for him otherwise. Very, very painful. So I just maybe on a PEX it's not so bad, yeah, because you know, this is not necessarily a massive piece, but so I'd suggest just considering you know, what involvement you have with subcontractors and whether or not you've got clear resources. If you've got clear resources, you've got two guys, they're definitely going to be off for 4 weeks and they can be on it completely, okay, yeah. But if you're dependent on 3 or 4 guys or 5 guys who have got a week here, a week there, no. Have someone overviewing, because you will get problems. Okay, so I thought it's just worthwhile recapping everything from the day, because, you know, just to bring a bit of refresh and trying to remember, there's a lot of stuff. So basically, keep yourselves informed of what's going on inside of ESA. You know, read the programmatic papers, make yourself aware, talk to your delegation, monitor EMITS, build up your personal contact network, talk to people. Networking, you know, go to ESA events. Many ESA events are free. It's just your own transport and time to get there. Go. It's really worth it. It's the cost compared to traveling around 20 organisations, yeah, and the cost of going to one event where you usually have them all there at the same time. You can't compare it. So it's a very, very efficient way of building your network up. Cost efficient. Prepare for up-and-coming activities. Don't leave it till the ITT's out. You know, if the ITT's had just come out and you've done nothing, really quit. So unless you're a real expert in that field and you're very, very well known, like I'd severely consider whether or not you should bid. Yeah? Now you know the PEX is coming because for plenty of warning, you've got some industrial days coming. So now is exactly the time you should be talking to people and understanding if the idea you've got is really valuable, or do you need to shape it slightly to meet, you know, maybe something ESA's currently doing now, or where, you know, Estonia in general is going. You know, you need to be open-minded and prepared to shape this proposition that you have. Form your teams, talk to potential subcontractors if you need any. Think about your bid process now. You've got a period of time, you know, start to think about how you're going to do that. You know, you've got a set period of time to do it. You know, when do you think you'll need to do? Can you find a reviewer that will be willing to review some of this stuff? And start, if you've got subcontracts, start to do that, because it can go easy or it can go painfully, and you won't know until you start. So the earlier you start to do that, the better, really. That's pretty much it. I mean, I hope the few hours has been very, very useful. It's been fun to give it, actually. But yeah, I hope you've learned a lot from today. I appreciate everyone coming. I think it's, you know, there's a lot of potential here. We've seen this with our own teams here. I mean, there's exceptionally good capabilities in this country, and particularly in engineering areas. So I think there's a lot of potential out there. If you're prepared to talk, engage, there's no doubt you'll find you know, good opportunities. So best of luck with it all, really.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Maybe it is not the topic for today.
Yeah.
But what are the penalties of ESA?
Ooh.
If you need to get the contract and pay, or if you get your first payment and don't start the new life in somewhere.
I would say, honestly, it depends on what type of contract you're in, yeah? Now, in R&D and study contracts, I mean, there's a potential for failure. You know, things can go wrong. It depends on what's gone wrong. You know, if your subcontractor gets up and disappears, sorry, that's not going to be good enough answer. And they're probably going to expect you to carry the can there and deliver something. Yeah? But it's unlikely they'll have, you know, too stringent a fixed penalty. It might be the damage of some percentage of the overall contract. And that's why your commercial guys need to get cover of that contract early, yeah? So that they can hold over that and understand their risk, or the risk the organisation's under. Some contracts with ESA, be wary, they're unlimited. Yeah? The damages can be unlimited. You're working on a piece of onboard or with a launcher or something else where there's potential safety aspect, then your damages can be substantial. Yeah? So you do need to be aware of that. Studies and things, you know, they're pragmatic generally. Yeah? But they'll be clear of what's expected from you and how much damage you're expecting to cover. In general, subcontract arrangements tend to push that down and back-to-back contracting. So, for example, if it turns out that, you know, you took some sub-component from a sub and it blows up, and that's the end of the spacecraft, ooh, you've got a right to take into the cleaners. But there can be harsh penalty. So you really do need a thorough review of the contractual conditions. It's unlikely this will be the case in a PEC scenario because they're trying to build capability. These are not operational systems. Yeah, if you're dealing with operational systems, then clearly, yeah, you can cause damage. It's unlikely you'd ever get to that part because, I mean, clearly there's a lot of testing and various other verification checks and things that go along the way. Yeah, and ESA are also accepting this stuff along the development process. Yeah. You know, they have a factory acceptance test and various other types of acceptance. So don't take it too harshly, but you know, you do need to understand what commercial risk you're exposed to.
I have a related question, maybe. Does ESA look at what kind of insurance contract the company has?
Yeah, they might ask for certain types of insurances. They'll be in the cover letter or the STCs, like indemnity insurance, this kind of stuff. Yeah. Sometimes you can find that certain countries prohibit certain types of insurances that ESA want. And if you're in such a situation, then any letter or from a legal representative stating that is okay. Yeah? If you're aware of a law that counters their rule, it's okay. You're not expected to break the law. Yeah.
In general, how easy it is to start working for ESA, for an SME company from Estonia, for instance, which doesn't have maybe some sort of working contacts with other companies which are already involved with ESA contracts?
Well, I mean, I'd spin it the other way and say, what's the opportunity? It's almost 2 years away before you're a member state. You've got the support of your delegation, bring in budget to help build capability, build it wisely. Look at the future of where ESA's going. Look at some of the new programs. Talk to ESA and say, what challenges do you have in here? I mean, you're bringing interesting R&D funding here, yeah, which they could take somewhere. And then you become the hot spot. Yeah, you come up with something interesting and can take that forward and show it can work, the primes will be chasing you, not the other way around. You've got 2 years to get into networking events, yeah? Build those contact relationships up. Find out what others are doing. So you have a good period of time now. You've got a fixed budget which is allocated only to you. You're not going to be competing with anyone else in Europe. So you've got 2 years to build that and the networks associated to it, yeah? You've got geolocation, you've got geo-return issues, you've got the politics on your side, i.e. that ESA is going to be keen to make sure that the industrial return back to Estonia for its contribution is happening. But it's about being proactive and not just waiting to fill that geo gap, but being forward with it, yeah, looking for where they're moving. There are a number of programs going on within ESA at this moment. Look to see how you can fit within that. Particularly things in early phases, yeah? Because that just gives you good opportunity. I'm sure many technical officers or heads of division that you talk to and say, hey, now we've got this idea, and we'd like to understand what challenges you are facing, and see if you can blend those two things into something they're going to get a lot of value off, and then you get their support. So yeah, I think the opportunity is there. It's what you make of it now. As I said, in terms of what I've ever seen for capability in this country, there is a great deal of exceptionally good engineers here. So make use of it. You got the talent, we'll exploit it.